What is going on, everybody? I am back today with another list video. And clearly, if you can't tell with the amount of list videos that I've released in the month of October, I'm a big fan of horror movies. I love talking about horror, giving people horror film recommendations. And I released a video not too long ago talking about some of the worst horror movies that I've ever seen in my life. And I thought I would do something on the inverse. And originally, I was like, well, I can't make a best horror movies of all time or my favorite because the list would be way too long and damn near impossible for me to not talk for an hour and a half, simply because of how much I love the genre. So I thought what I would do is I would talk about my favorite horror films of the decade thus far, because that's a lot easier for me to condense that list down, talk about some things in detail, and I tried to be selective and choose only 3 films from each year, starting in 2020 all the way till currently in 2025, where we are now. And so I didn't want the list to be way too long, so I condensed this. I think it's like 18 or 19 movies, somewhere in there. But hopefully, you might see some familiar stuff. Maybe you'll see something that you haven't watched yet. But hopefully, I'll give you some recommendations to check out films that are all around the different styles and genres that exist within horror. So when I'm doing this list, I'm starting in 2020 and I'm going to go through 2025. This isn't like from worst to best or whatever, because they're all some of my favorites. So I'm starting in the year 2020 and I'm working my way to 2025. So first up is going to be the Brandon Cronenberg film Possessor. This is sci-fi horror. I've talked about this movie a ton on my channel, but very simply, it is about an organization that develops this technology that gives a person the ability to possess another human being in order to commit assassinations. It is absolutely incredible. The movie has some really thought-provoking commentary, but it's also stylistically beautiful. It has amazing performances. It has a phenomenal score. Andrea Riseborough is really captivating in the lead performance, and Christopher Abbott is also, they really just light up the screen. The movie gets incredibly violent in moments, but as I said, it's incredibly thought-provoking. It's very clear Brandon is in a very similar vein to his father, and the two of them really do an amazing job creating just captivating stories that also leave you thinking about them long after they're over. Up next is the Charlie Kaufman film I'm Thinking of Ending Things. This to you might not be conventional horror, but to me, everything about this is horrific. It is on the surface a story of a boyfriend and girlfriend going together to visit the boyfriend's parents, but there's a lot more going on underneath the surface. This story is harrowing and depressing. There's a lot about suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, self-worth, all of these issues. Like, as someone who suffers from very severe depression and anxiety, there's a lot in this movie that I can resonate with, that works well. Charlie Kaufman is very overly referential to things that he appreciates, but I think that it works within the context of the film. It's beautifully shot. There are some truly horrific moments throughout the film. Even though some might not consider it straightforward horror, I do personally find this movie to be very horrific, and I think it's one of the best films of the decade thus far. And the last one for 2020 is going to be Psycho Goreman. This is a fun, over-the-top, goofy, ridiculous horror comedy that has some of the best comedy that I've seen in a film in years. It is about 2 young children who gain the ability to control an all-powerful alien warlord god. It is truly hilarious. It's stylistic. The practical effects from Steven Kostanski are absolutely brilliant. I think about the music like once a week. There's just so much about it to really appreciate and enjoy. It's a lower budget indie film that has so much passion in every single frame. Just something that I love a lot, and I recommend to virtually everyone because I feel like there's something any horror fan could love from it. Coming in 2021, first one is a little bit of a cheat, but I had to mention this, and this is the limited event series Midnight Mass from director Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan is one of my favorite horror directors. I think he is an absolute genius, and I think this is the greatest thing that he has made in his career. Every single episode just has so much passion in it. The performances are great. The long-form monologues in it are so touching and brilliant. There are some truly horrific, violent moments, but there's also a lot of stripped back, really beautiful, emotional moments. I think this is clearly one of Mike's biggest passion projects. It's something that I recommend to virtually any horror lover because it is absolutely incredible. Up next is the James Wan film Malignant, which when this first released, every single person that watched this had some kind of different perspective to how to take it. I love this movie because James Wan sucks you in at the beginning to where you think it's going to be a stereotypical James Wan movie, and then it goes completely and totally off the rails and feels like something from an entirely different time period. It's not something that ever takes itself way too seriously. It's fun, it's over the top, it's violent. I really love the story. I just think that it's pure horror entertainment. And I think it's James Wan getting to do something out of the realm of what he was conventionally known for. I think it's an absolute blast and a movie that I think if you're a fan of horror, you can find something to appreciate with it. And then to end up on 2021, I'm going to talk about the film Lamb. This was produced by A24. And I feel like this movie gets a lot of middling reviews, but once again, I like horror films that parallel the real human experience. And this movie in particular is horrifying. This movie covers a family that wants to have a child. They get the ability to have a child, but it is a half human, half lamb hybrid. And there's a lot of interesting commentary on the relationship between human beings and animals, environmentalism, all of these different things throughout the film. But there are genuinely horrific moments as well. The turmoil between these family members, I feel like it's so atmospheric, it's incredibly engaging. Just a movie that I really love a lot and grow to appreciate more with every rewatch. Starting 2022 is the Jordan Peele film Nope. I love this movie. I feel like this was Jordan Peele making his Steven Spielberg type film. Incredible performances. It's visually captivating. The cinematography is stunning. And there are some moments in this that I believe are some of the most horrific in his entire catalog. Just really unsettling and unnerving. I feel like the movie just has so many brilliant moments. It's genuinely funny at times, but it also knows when to take its horror seriously, which I think is why it's so cool that Jordan comes from a horror background. And it's just a really great watch. Next, and this is a twofer, so it's a little bit of a cheat, but I want to mention both, and that is both the Ty West films X and Pearl. I think for Ty West to be able to release both of these movies so close together and for them to work so incredibly well and to capture different eras of filmmaking history, just really phenomenal. X is a much more straightforward slasher film, where Pearl is much more of a deep rooted character study that feels like an homage to old Hollywood. But both of them are just so incredible. Mia Goth gives some of the best performances of her career in both films. I love the cast of characters in both movies. I really enjoyed Maxine. It's not necessarily as high up there for me as X and Pearl, but I still think these two movies were so cool for horror as a genre, and I think they were so important and just really excellent and very well made. Up next is the film Smile. I actually just did a full review on this not that long ago. Smile really reinvigorated my hope for modern blockbuster horror, for a production company to be able to put a bunch of money into a horror property and have it succeed. The marketing campaign behind this was brilliant. And when I went in, I didn't expect very much because I've seen so many ideas like this from bigger production companies and for them to fail miserably. But this movie really did an exceptional job at covering topics when it comes to mental illness. And I feel like the way it researched things about PTSD and anxiety and depression and all of these different ideas while also just being genuinely compelling, horrifying movie. It was just really impressive. And I revisited it not too long ago. I did a full review if you want to go watch my thoughts, and I talk about it in great detail. But I really think this movie slept on a lot. I don't think enough people appreciate it, and it's one that I grow to appreciate more with each rewatch. Up next, starting 2023, is the film Talk to Me from the Filippo brothers. This movie is one of the most hopeless, depraved, depressing horror movies that I've ever watched, and I commend the brothers for being able to pull that off. I feel like horror filmmakers are so incredibly scared of making a movie hopeless. And there is something about the way they establish the characters in this movie and just completely pull all semblance of hope away very quickly. It's bleak, but it's also really incredibly well made. Cinematographically, it's beautiful. There's amazing editing in this film, some truly incredible performances, and it's one of the films on this list that I've thought about the most. Up next is the film Hell House LLC Origins, The Carmichael Manor. I'm a huge Stephen Cognetti fan. I loved this movie when it was released. I'm a big found footage guy as well. And so this is one of my favorite found footage films of the decade. I feel like it is genuinely scary. I love all of the performances in the movie. I think the setting is really incredible. And there's a little bit more jump scares than I'm used to in a Cognetti found footage film. But I think there's also that reserved moments where the camera just lingers on horrific imagery and makes you as the audience member feel incredibly unsettled. It's just really Cognetti is so incredibly talented in the found footage format, and I think that he really knows what he's doing and how to get the most out of his audience. Love this movie. I rewatch it pretty frequently because I love it so much. Up next, and this teeters the line between horror, comedy, drama, but this is the film Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. This movie has a charm and a wit and a sense of humor that I really appreciate, but obviously the film is exploring vampirism. There are moments in it that are genuinely creepy and unsettling, but the movie is really a coming of age story about a young woman who's in a family of vampires. She does not want to drink blood. She does not want to kill people, and her family pushes her incredibly hard and tells her that she needs to. And eventually she caves and is like, okay, I'll figure it out. And she meets this young man who wants to kill himself. He hates his life and he's really upset. And the two of them form an incredibly unlikely bond. It is a beautiful, beautiful movie. It's hilarious, but it has all the elements of horror that you can appreciate. And that's why I wanted to list it on this. Up next is the film Red Rooms. This is like real life horror in the sense that made me so incredibly uncomfortable. It is about a high profile serial killer case and a woman who is obsessed to the point where she's trying to get involved in certain things that could get her in trouble. It is suspenseful. It is unsettling. It is beautifully shot. It's a movie that not enough people talked about. And when it finally became available to see in the United States, I don't feel like the marketing was great because I don't feel like enough people talk about this movie, and it is genuinely brilliant. I love it. Very reminiscent of Michael Haneke, who is one of my favorite directors. Brilliant in every single way. It teeters the line sometimes on like questioning morality in certain things, and I always love filmmakers that are willing to take that level of a risk and discuss those types of things. Just a really fantastic film. Up next is the Oz Perkins film Longlegs. I know this movie got a pretty mixed reception when it was released, and I'm not sure why. Aesthetically speaking, this movie is one of the most beautifully shot films that I've seen the entire decade, and it does an amazing job creating horrific atmosphere. There is brutal imagery. It's shocking. And I know some people are like, I don't like that it takes that supernatural or fantastical ending. I love that. I love when movies say, like, screw reality. We're going to just do whatever we want and kind of take it in whatever direction we'd like to. And I think Oz took a risk with this movie, and I think it works out really well. It's something that I genuinely enjoy. It's a movie I think about quite a bit. In 2024, two of my favorite horror films of the entire decade were released, so I'm going to talk about them now. First up is Jane Schoenbrun's I Saw the TV Glow, another film that some people might not conventionally see as a horror movie, but it is essentially a film about a trans individual that is scared of embracing their identity due to the ramifications surrounding family, friends, societal things, and the movie is them essentially denying their identity and the horrific things that come with that. It is brilliantly shot. There's so many beautiful moments of dialogue in this, some of the best performances of the decade so far. And I think outside of the story of, trans acceptance of their identity and, the beauty in trans people being able to embrace their identity, there's also something here about the relationship with media and when you're lonely and depressed, like how so many people will pour themselves into music, television, these different things in order to find some semblance of comfort, and possibly the people that you'll meet along the way that you can relate to in those ways. It's just a beautiful film. It is one of my favorite films, period, of the decade, and I think you need to see it if you haven't. And then in 2024, Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, arguably my favorite modern director. This is everything I want in a horror movie. Some of my favorite cinematography of the decade thus far, some of my favorite performances. Lily Rose Depp was snubbed of an Oscar nomination. She was genuinely brilliant in every scene. I loved all the cast of characters in it. The music is beautiful. Just everything about this movie is what I want in horror. It's paying homage to a film that is so incredibly important in horror history, but doing it in its own unique way. Just an amazing experience. Robert Eggers is the best filmmaker right now at capturing period accuracy in a way that works. And so now we're on to this year, and the first film I'm going to talk about is Ryan Coogler's Sinners. This movie is incredible. It is a complete and total spectacle. Amazing performances, some of the best music in a movie all year long, great cinematography, and such an interesting depiction of vampires that also has a really excellent societal message. I found it to be so incredibly compelling. I wanted to go back into the theater and watch it right away as soon as I finished it. If you haven't seen this yet, you are missing out. Up next is the Zach Cregger film Weapons. I really enjoyed Barbarian. I think Weapons is even better. Such a fantastic story that takes a little while to get to the reveal, and when the reveal happens, you're like, did he really go there? And yes, he did. I just thought that this was a really phenomenal piece of filmmaking. I really respect Zach for taking a huge risk. I love the way that the story kind of jumps between different characters and how everything merges together in the end. Just a really brilliant movie watching experience, and I'm already looking forward to seeing it again. And then last up, probably my favorite horror movie of the year so far, but it's going to be between these three. It's difficult because I'm different every day. But the Philippo brothers Bring Her Back. It's kind of crazy they're on this list twice. I like hopeless horror, and this is another one in a very different way about a mother who loses her child and is desperate enough to do anything to get her to come back. I really cannot express enough how amazing these guys are at conveying mood and tone cinematographically, the performances that they get out of their actors. Just a really remarkable experience. I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't, especially if you like bleak, unrelenting horror. What are some of your favorite horror films of the decade? Let me know in the comments. This is just some. I could have made a list of about 50 films long, but I wanted to keep it relatively reserved. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.